The brand new Ego 580 Stubby. Where'd we get it? We'll tell you when we get back. I'm Tim Johnson. You're watching Shop Tool Reviews. Okay, if you know Ego and you know the Ego products, you know they didn't make a stubby blower, and they don't make a stubby blower. They should, but they don't. Actually, nobody does. So where did this all start from? Well, we had the Ego 580 CFM blower, which, by the way, is a great blower. Ego's battery-powered products on the OPE market, or the outdoor power equipment market, are really top of the game. If they don't have the best product in the category, they've got one of the best products in each category. Blowers, they've definitely set the standard when it comes to these handheld blowers now. Again, this is getting 580 CFM and I think like 170 miles per hour, I think 168. And that all depends on what you're doing with the snout, things like that. So, by the way, when marketing plays with those numbers, CFMs and miles per hour. But anyway, still one of the best blowers on the market, period. This 580 is not even their best. They've got a 650 now in their handheld blower platform. Anyway, so we got this in, we took it over to our detailers, took it over to Chase over at Michael's Auto Detailing, because let's face it, you know, he's washing tons of cars each day and using tons of towels to dry those off, tons of his microfiber towels, you know, 3 or 4 to dry it off, where if you took a blower, blew it off, then it maybe takes 1 towel to then, you know, dry off the rest of it, if any. If it's a coated car, typically you can blow it all off with a blower. So that's what he used it for, and he absolutely loves it. But one thing he said, you know, it would be nice if the long snout was quite a bit shorter. In other words, if I could just have the blower kind of in a short format where it had a neck down snout right here at the end, and I could use it like that. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take that as a challenge. So that's what we did. So let's quit talking and actually see how we did this. Okay, so we've got a blower that obviously does very well, but we want to make it a little shorter, make it a little handier to have around the shop, as well as do some specific things like blowing off cars. A lot of times these longer tips, especially if you add a tip to it to neck it down or to give it kind of a wide mouth, you end up just making it quite long. That's really any blower, because usually they're made for blowing stuff close to the ground like leaves and things like that. So I know what we're wanting to do with it is not the typical use of a blower, even though it works really, really well, especially for blowing off cars after you've washed them and such. So anyway, we still want to be able to utilize these tips, but we want to shorten this thing up. So we don't want to just whack it off. And again, if you whack it off, you may increase your CFM, but you're going to lose on your mile per hour on your velocity. So we want to do this smart. So we need this tip here, because that's where these tips actually clip onto. Come on here and clip, and they're also indexed with these grooves here as well. So we want to keep this, and obviously we need this because this is what actually clips onto the body. So we actually need to retain this as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut the middle out of here and bring this up. So kind of an obvious design. I don't want to cut dead on here because I know I'm going to have to epoxy or glue, so I want to leave a little lip, but I don't want a lot there, so I'm going to use little masking tape, little 1/4 inch masking tape, and use this as my line. I'm going to try to get it near perfect, but I'm probably not. So there we have it. So now I'm going to cut on this side of the line, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to cut this pretty flush to that line. I'm going to use a multi-tool, an oscillating tool, to try to cut this. Hopefully it'll cut straight. If not, we may punt to a detour. Okay, once I got the blade plunged in, it moved really, really quick, and as long as you kind of kept the blade where you had kind of a lot of the body in the cut, you could keep it pretty straight as well. Didn't wander off course too much at all, kept that pretty straight. Also, it moved along pretty quick. I probably sped that up here in the video, but just FYI, I mean, I don't think I took much more than a minute to make that cut. Maybe longer, but it definitely wasn't 5 minutes. Didn't take a long time to do that. And now I've retained some of that collar, as well as I got a pretty straight cut there. and I've retained all of that internal where it actually slides onto the body as well. So I think we're good to go right there. We'll peel our tape off. And there we have it. So let's move that aside and let's move on to cutting this. And again, I'm going to cut pretty close to that line. I may leave a little, but I'm going to get rather close. You know what? I may not. I think I'm going to cut back on this as well and go a different route on epoxy in that. So I'm going to actually do the same thing with this side and put me a tape mark on it and cut on the outside of that tape. Alrighty, so we're going to cut this. So again, we got a pretty straight cut on there. Moved along rather quickly. Let's take off our tape. There we have it. Now let's see what we cut out of here. So we've shortened this thing almost a full foot, so 11 inches, actually probably a little more once we get done, that we've shortened this. So we've taken almost a full foot out of this length of this blower. So now all we have to do is marry these two. So we're going to have to fill that gap with something. So we're going to have to think a little bit, fill that gap, epoxy it together, and then go from there. Okay, so here we go. We've taken that almost a foot out. So here's what we've got left. I need to clean up these edges a little bit. I'll do that here in a moment. But as you can see here, this is fitting in here too easily. And I would say in all, I've probably got more than an 8, probably 3/16. There's definitely not a 1/4 inch to take up. But if you look at diameter wise, it's going to be half of that. So about 3/32, which I bet if I had another width of this. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to cut another slice off of here, and we're going to use that to see if we can epoxy this together. Okay, again, we're going to use our trusty tape, and we're going to cut off the big end here. And yes, I know that's too big, but we'll show you why in a moment. So now again, let's get our saw out and we're going to make this cut right here. I'm going to try not to deform this piece. With this smaller piece, it might try to deform a little bit. So I'm going to be very careful trying not to do that. Okay, so we got our ring cut. Clean this up a little bit, get that tape peeled off of there, and then we'll show you how we're actually going to do this. Okay, so we've got our additional, I guess we'd say reducer collar cut. We got all the pieces sanded down. We'll clean them up here in a moment before we epoxy these, but got them all nice and smooth. No, you know, fingernail hangers, well, left on here per se. So should be about ready to go together. But we just need to figure out how we're going to do this, because still, so this piece is not small enough to go in there, nor is it small enough to fit snug on the outside of this here. So still a pretty big gap there. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and cut this. There we go. So now we've got this cut. Now let me put it around here and see how much overlap we have. So we've got an overlap of, looks like probably a little more than a 1/4 inch, probably about 3/8 of an inch there. Just gonna mark this here. So then I'm going to cut that off. And then let's see what we got. Now if we got a little gap, I'm okay with it. But I think we got that about dead on. So I can actually probably glue that together. I'm gonna grind some of these, sand some of these ridges smooth here. That goes on there. That should fit in there rather tightly, and I think once we epoxy that and squeeze it in there, I think we'll be good to go. So we're going to use a little acetone just to kind of clean everything up. Okay, so it's taken a little convincing, a little sanding on the ring, but you can see I've got it most of the way in there. And then I should be able to just, that ridge should be able to push the rest of that ring in. And so that's what we're going to end up with. So now let me mix up a little 5-minute epoxy. And let's put these dudes in. You know what I need to do? I need to make sure that I'm indexing this correctly. Because we're going to have that on there. And this snaps onto the side of the ego. So therefore we want this up here. This right here. Okay, so this stuff looks like that it's about dry. As you can see here, my stick's kind of dried to it. It's still a little bit tacky as far as a little bit sticky, but it's nice and hard. And so I'm going to do a little insurance. I'm going to drill 2 holes. I'm going to drill a hole here and a drill here, and I'm going to put a rivet. So and we should be good to go now. Got the blower. That locks on, no problem at all. Now here's the test. That locks on. So our new Stubby Ego blower. Take this tip off. This tip on. So now we can still change tips. We think it turned out really well. We took a full 11 inches out of the length of this blower here. So literally this is cut out, which is 11 inches right here. And the great thing about it is the way we did it, we can still change out these tips here, so we can go from a wide mouth tip right here, and as you can see, it still clips on really, really well, nice and firm. And we can just go to the neck down round tip as well. All the still clips on. Everything works like it's supposed to, just like you'd be clipping it on the end of this. When it had the end on it, it's going to work the same way. So now we've literally just got a stubby ego blower, and even this can come off. So if we wanted to, we could just buy a complete new snout here and be able to put the full length back on it as well. So we're not hurting the blower whatsoever. We're not impeding any of the performance. We're just adding the accessibility to be able to cut that down so you easily hold that over a car, blow those off without having to stand 3 foot away. Because I think initially this thing's about 3 foot long, and now it's like 25 inches long, literally from the tip to the tail of this with the battery on it. It's like 25 inches, so cut quite a bit off. The Ego Fit 580, again, if you haven't used one of these, you really ought to. I think at Home Depot they sell for about $329 with a 5 amp hour battery. Their batteries are legit as well. They make their own batteries, by the way. They understand battery technology, so the mother company behind them really understands when it comes to chargers and batteries. Nice fuel indicator here on the back as well to tell you how much is left on the battery. So just a really nice blower, and we're really excited that we were able to cut this down, make it usable, still be able to change out these tips. Make sure you check them out at egopowerplus.com. Also keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, that bell notification, that's going to let you know when new videos are available. Have a great day and go out and do something nice for someone.